My first business was in tutoring, and I was an English tutor. And alhamdulillah, I was quite successful. And one of the reasons that I remember in one advert I wrote, I said that you don't want a tutor who just tells you, um, here, you need to write a story. It has to have a good opening. It has to, maybe they just give the ingredients of the story. Now do it. Right? And I remember I just said that in my advert, and I got a 11 plus. I got a really good client. The parents said, "Yeah, I've had all these tutors, and they're just telling my daughter, okay, this is it. We need an engaging story. Do it." Right? They didn't teach them how. Right? And because I was an English teacher and I went through the trenches and I knew exactly with 30 students at a time, all right, you can't just tell a kid to write a story. You've got to tell them, okay, how do you plan it, right? How do you brainstorm some ideas? What's a good way to start, right? How do you develop the characters, right? You need that level of detail. And only a proper English teacher who actually reads themselves and writes themselves can teach that properly, right? Fast forward 10 years, and now I'm a coach, and I've been thinking to myself, why is it that coaching businesses are starting to die, right? And this has noticeably been happening since the age of AI, especially 2024. It coincided with the cost of living crisis, right, in the UK. And here's the thing, and I noticed even with my own experiences, there's a massive difference between, and I still invest in coaching a lot, right? And part of why I do is that I'm curious, I want to see what's working. And I've noticed that, for example, there's still, and you can see this, right? In the internet age, everything was reliant upon information. It was all about who could present information in the best way, right? So you go to YouTube and you'd have on productivity, information everywhere about productivity, information about health, and it's everywhere, right? But then you would pay course creators or even coaches for the information, for their expertise, because they knew the knowledge in a more systematic way and they could present that information in a systematic way. That's it. You got a nice course, and that would be good, and that'd be good as a business, right? It's great for the student, for the consumer, for the client, and it's great for the creator because everyone's happy. But then ChatGPT came along, right? 2023, and just to give you the scale of this, right? 100 million users ChatGPT got in 2023. It took, this is insane, right? It took radio 40 years to get to 100 million users. It took TV 13 years. TV, right? It took the internet 4 years to get to 100 million users. How long did it take AI? ChatGPT? How long did it take OpenAI? 3 weeks. That's scary. That's scary, right? And that's when there's a seismic shift, right? Because now you can just ask ChatGPT, okay? Do you want some time management tips? Ooh, free. You get it straight away. You want some productivity hacks? Ask it. Free. Yeah, you want some goal setting frameworks? Boom, free, right? And that's why many coaches or course creators who all they're doing is just packaging information, right? Just trying to get your attention. Their businesses are failing. They're struggling, right? Why? Because you can just as easily get that information. I've experienced myself, right? So, for example, I had a health coach once, where I was asking for I wanted to lose weight. I was looking for nutrition advice, and he just said to me, he just gave me this meal plan. He said, do this in the morning, eat this there, eat this there. And I'm like, if I could do that, I'll do it myself. I came to you for coaching, right? Another coach said to me, just have high expectations of yourself. Don't, you shouldn't eat any sugar, just have fruit. And I'm like, well, I don't have those expectations of myself. That's why I want coaching. That's going to take time, right? And so what's the difference? The difference is that, you need application. You need coaching. You need real experience, which helps transform the client, right? So to give, to share a secret, which I don't talk about this much, right? In my famous program is called the Vista Time Mastery Program, right? And it is a summation, honestly, of 20 years of my experience. And the reason why AI can't replace what I do is I have a unique mechanism called, I call it the 10x execution engine, right? Now, this actually fuses three things, right? Three things which AI can't replicate, right? And it's the integration of these three things. The three things are, one, it's the Islamic time management. I mean, just that alone, right? So you ask AI, it does not have good knowledge on Islam, right? It makes many mistakes, especially when it comes to Quran, Hadith. It misquotes, right? It doesn't understand. Its fiqh is terrible, right? Honestly, just you can't rely on it, right? So having that lived experience of studying Islam 10, 20 years, my clients value that. They value someone who understands the deen, understands Islam, understands the importance of that, and fuses that within the coaching, right? Number two is the emphasis on lived productivity and lived high performance, right? So this is not just like high performance, just like a hack from a book, right? This is from being in the trenches, right? And having, gone from being a teacher and, quitting that job, going off to the Middle East, setting up a business, failing in a business, trying another one, right? Those experiences are just as important to my clients as the theory is, right? And then finally, the real life accountability, right? Because AI does not ask proactive questions, right? So when a client comes to me and talks, I call out their faulty thinking, I call out their mistakes, right? And it's real. And look, I've tried AI coaching myself. I've tried with the very best, like the Tony Robbins AI coaching, and it's not very good. It's not very. It does not beat a real coach, right? You can ask some specific questions to get some, and so that's why the best programs augment AI, right? So I'll have AI, and I'll encourage my students to use AI. I have AI coaches or GPT coaches, which I will use in my programs to help my clients. But they definitely need me, and they definitely need my frameworks and the overall process, which AI can't replicate, right? It's a massive topic, but I hope that gives you an idea of why. Look. Real coaches, world-class coaches and world-class programs will still thrive. But the trick is to see, okay, do these programs create transformation? Look at their case studies. Look at their playlists, right? Do they have example after example, case study after case study of where they've actually helped people change their lives? Because lives, remember this, lives are not changed by information alone. Lives are transformed, right? Through the kind of intersection of having a coach who has great expert knowledge, but also puts you in an environment that's often a community, yeah, and where there's back and forth and there's lived experience, and that's being conveyed and it's being contextualized with your experience, with what you bring to the table. And that's why I always say to my clients, right, you're the curriculum, right? But obviously we will teach you things, but we will show you how to adapt that to your life circumstances through this program, right? So hope that explains. It's a complicated topic, but yeah, let me know in the comments your thoughts and feelings about this. Assalamu alaikum.